Hey everyone, Diggs here again, coming at you with another video. Today we're going to kind of take a little bit of a step back. You see, I started to realize that while these continents are pretty good, they're not exactly the best of examples for good coastal outlines. I think that they're just kind of lacking. So I made a new map to showcase all of the different types of coastal outlines that I could possibly think of. That's probably why it looks so busy. I'm going to be going through the list of the different types of coastlines pretty quickly, so you might want to press that pause button if you see something you're interested in and want to look at it a little bit closer. Let's get right into it. What do you say? The first kind of coastal outline that I'd like to go over are these islands right over here. Basically, what I like to call these are directional islands, I guess. I don't know. Basically, I took my inspiration from Hawaii and I just put it onto a continent. Next, we have fractal islands. I took my inspiration here from Scandinavia as well as Hudson Bay. This right here is another good example of fractal islands. Greece was my inspiration for this one. I like to call this one right here connected islands. As you can see, this island is connected to the main continent by two small land bridges, which really lends itself to a good narrative, right? You could have the people on the island fighting the people on the continent, and where they have to fight are those two land bridges, thus creating a sort of Spartans in Thermopylae kind of feel to it, you know? Next on the list are peninsulas and bays. The reason why I put those two together is because often peninsulas create a bay. These are pretty good to add to your map because bays offer calm water, and calm water is good for ships. And what's good for ships is good for trade, and what's good for trade is good for cities. So what I suggest is putting at least a few good bays in your map. Although I always highly suggest using real-world examples in your map, you can also just kind of do whatever you want sometimes. I call this geyser fields. Basically how I figure it is there's just a bunch of really big geysers that create all kinds of weird waterways and strange islands. Speaking of not following the rules, you remember when I said that you shouldn't do straight lines? Well, break the rules a little bit, right? I liked the way that looked, so I kept it. I don't know, man. It looks good to me. Another great coastal feature is deltas, but because next video we're going to go into rivers, I'll get into deltas then. In one of my earlier maps, I had this sort of, ripped continent field that you can kind of see here. I don't know, I haven't really been able to find a real-world reference for it, but I just really like the way it looks, so I kept it. Another great terrain feature that you could add would be sandbars like this one. Now, this one isn't exactly the most accurate, but once again, I just like the way it looked, so I kept it. Another great thing to add is a sea between two large land masses. Because water offers the best way to travel in low technology settings, it's a good idea to have an inland sea so your player characters can move throughout the map more easily. If player characters can move around the map more easily, it gives you more opportunities to showcase all of the cool terrain and coastal features you've put in, not to mention all of the cultures that they might run into as well. Similar to my first video, I've added a point of extreme strategic importance. This time, it takes the form of an island. You can see here that this island divides the sea in half, which means all of the trade and traffic of that sea has to go through that point, which means whoever controls that point controls trade. Another fun thing to add into your maps is a narrow strip of land that divides maybe a sea from an ocean or from two oceans from one another, like Panama. This narrow strip of land would also be of great strategic importance. Because this strip of land is the most narrow point to get access to the sea or to the Southern Ocean, people are going to use that to trade and travel. So if you control the spot, you control all the trade in the south. It would also be a great spot for a canal if the technology allowed for it. Another great thing to add would be subcontinents. As you guys can see here, I've put several subcontinents on my map. Here's one right here connected only by a small land bridge. And then here's another one connected by a larger land bridge. And then we have this one down here, which is only connected by the torn coast. Really, for me, the most important part about fantasy world building is finding a good balance between realism and fantasy. It's also about being inspired from your map to create a narrative. And probably most importantly, it's to have fun. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this little expansion to coastal outlines, and hey, if you did, think about pressing some buttons for me. All right, guys, catch you later.